Welcome to my channel Techify with Adil. So in this video we will be seeing about Microsoft Entra join prerequisites, their limitations and benefits. So in the previous video you can see more about Entra join and their how it's been added and what are their requirements and so on can be viewed from my previous videos. Okay, to join a Windows device, the device registration service must be configured to enable you to register devices. In addition to having permission to joining devices in the Microsoft Entra tenant, you must have fewer devices registered than the configured maximum. You can set up a maximum limit for the registration. So you should make sure the number of devices we are adding is always below the configured maximum. So anything beyond the maximum number will not be able to register. In addition, if the tenant is federated, your identity provider must support WSFed and WS Trust username password endpoint. This can be version 1.3 or 2005. So this protocol support is required to both join the device to Microsoft Entra ID and log on to the device with a password. The Microsoft Entra join is intended for organizations that want to be cloud first. There are no restrictions on the size or type of organization that can deploy Microsoft Entra join. Microsoft Entra join works well even in the hybrid environment, enabling access to both cloud and on-premises apps and resources. So implementing the Microsoft Entra join devices provides you with the following benefits. So these are the benefits of Microsoft Entra join. SSO to your Azure managed SaaS apps and services. You don't need to additionally authenticate prompts whenever accessing. So it's like single sign-on. So once you signed on, it will be authenticating the SaaS and service apps automatically. The second thing is enterprise complaint roaming for user settings across joint devices. So user need not connect to Microsoft account to see settings across the devices. So Windows Hello support for secure and convenient access to work resources. Restriction of access to apps from only devices that meet compliance policies. So only the devices, if the devices don't access to compliance policies, say example, if your compliance policy is to have a latest updated version of antivirus and one of your machine doesn't have the antivirus or doesn't have the latest version, then the access to the apps will not be allowed because it doesn't meet that compliance policy. So this will give you a good security line. Seamless access to on-premises resources when the devices has line of sight to the on-premises domain controller. For organizations that have on-premise Windows Server Active Directory infrastructure, using Microsoft Entra ID offers, so it's like you already have the Windows Server Active Directory infrastructure. So what are the benefits or what are the advantages you get? So you want to transition to cloud-based infrastructure using Microsoft Entra ID and MDM like Intune. Scenarios where you can't use the on-premise domain join, for example, if you need to get mobile devices such as tablets and phones under control because your iOS, then for the Android you cannot join them to the AD. Your users primarily need to access Microsoft 365 or other SaaS apps integrated with Microsoft Entra ID. You want to manage a group of users in Microsoft Entra ID instead of in Active Directory. This can apply, for example, for seasonal workers, contractors, temporary workers, and so on. You want to provide joining capabilities to workers in remote branch offices with limited on-premises infrastructure. Then join devices to Microsoft Entra ID. So joining a device to Microsoft Entra ID is not a complicated procedure. So you can do it right after the Windows OS installation or you can do it later at any time. To join Windows devices to Microsoft Entra ID at the end of the Microsoft Windows setup, we just need to follow these steps. So when you turn on your device, start the setup process, you should see the getting ready message. Follow the prompt to set up the device. Start by customizing your region, language, which normally we do when setting up the OS. So just do the same, then accept the Microsoft software license, then select the network for connection, then this device belongs to all my organization. This is the step you need to do. So once you do that, then it will prompt for credentials that were provided by the organization, meaning your org ID. So you have to sign in with that. Once you sign in, your device locates a matching tenant in Microsoft Entra ID. If you are in a federated domain, you are redirected to your on-prem secure token service server, for example Active Directory Federation Services. If you are a user in a non-federated domain, enter the credentials directly on the Microsoft Entra ID hosted page. You are prompted for a multi-factor authentication challenge. Then Microsoft Entra ID checks whether an enrollment in mobile device management is required. Windows registers the device in the organization's directory in the Microsoft Entra ID, meaning in the cloud, and enrolls it in Microsoft Mobile Device Management (MDM). If you are a managed user, Windows takes you to the desktop through automatic sign-in process. If a federated user, you are directed to Windows sign-in screen to enter the credentials. Federated meaning like you are in a different domain and you are with the trusted connection with your Entra ID domain. So manage devices joined to Microsoft Entra ID. So we have seen how to join the device to Entra ID. So here it is managing the devices that's already joined to the Microsoft Entra ID. Group policy or Microsoft Configuration Manager applications mostly manage devices that are capable of joining ADDS. When you join a device to Microsoft Entra ID, group policy isn't available except when you use Microsoft Entra domain services. This we have discussed in the previous video. There's a service in Microsoft that's called Microsoft Entra domain services, meaning you can use some of the capabilities of ADDS in your Microsoft Entra. So it's an additional service you have to enable. However, even when Microsoft Entra domain services, group policies can manage devices such as smartphones and tablets. Microsoft Entra ID doesn't provide a built-in management mechanism for devices that don't support group policy. Additionally, Microsoft Entra domain services isn't enabled by default. You must manually enable and configure the service. If you want to manage devices that join Microsoft Entra ID, you can configure integration between Azure and a mobile device management mechanism such as Intune. If you configure Intune as an application in Azure, each device that joins Microsoft Entra ID can be configured to enroll in Intune automatically. For this to work, you need to have an active Intune subscription. That's an additional subscription you get for Intune because it's a separate service that's associated with the same Microsoft Entra tenant where you configure the integration of these services. Additionally, a user who joins a device to Microsoft Entra ID needs to have an assigned Intune license. After the device enrolls in Intune, you can configure Intune security and configuration policies that will apply to the user or to the device. It's important to understand that the management through Intune doesn't follow the same logic as management in group policy, nor does it have the many available options. Intune management options mostly focus on security and the apps that are on managed devices. So for the managing purpose, if you have we can use the group policies only at the case when we have this Microsoft Entra domain services. But even when using Microsoft Entra domain services, if your devices are like mobile devices, you will not be able to manage as mobile devices are not applicable with this group policies. So you will have to go for MDM such as Intune. So when you go for Intune, you need separate subscription, active subscription for that with the same ID of your Microsoft Entra tenant, and each device or the user who you want to manage should have an assigned Intune license. So without the license also you will not be able to manage. Once you have the active subscription with the license assigned to that user, then you will be able to manage the device. So this Intune is mostly its primary preference is on security and configuration of the policies, rather not like a group policy functioning, like it can set up the registries and so on and so on. It doesn't more concentrate on that. Its primary task is to follow the securities and the and manage the apps in your devices.